Pros, save more on the materials you need to get the job done, inside and out, at Lowe's. Right now, get 10% off in-stock Trex Naturals decking, now available in more styles. Plus, get 15% off select custom entry, interior, and storm doors. Then, we'll deliver it all straight to your job site to help keep your jobs moving. Get the brands pros trust, priced right, and ready when you need them. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 5/27. While supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Don't let your decision paralysis demon keep you from watching something great this weekend. Subscribe to ScreamShare, the newsletter that serves up a 5-minute breakdown of the best horror available on streaming. I'll have essential weekly movie picks covering new films, classics that you need to catch up on, and a movie that's always streaming for free. So subscribe now, and you can even be part of some frighteningly fun watch parties we're putting together that'll let you be part of the conversation. So click in the link in the show notes or go to screamshare.beehive.com. That's screamshare.beehive.com, and make sure you whitelist your welcome email so you can get updates for all of the news and updates. And now the body count continues. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking about The Running Man 2025 on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal Patrick Hamilton coming to you once again from Derry, Maine. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. And today we're going to unpack all the gorgeous details of 2025's version of the Stephen King / Richard Bachman novel, The Running Man, in the hopes that a contestant's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to give up my name when her hand is being crushed in a vice. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
We were unsurprisingly kind of on the same wavelength, because I was about to say that I am frantically putting together a series of disguises for you to choose from, whether you want to go as a priest or a mustachioed businessman, where apparently I did not give you enough spirit gum to keep that mustache stuck on.
That's right. I also think Glen Powell's a little too sweaty to keep a mustache on his face. I think that's a dose of realism.
He's also a little too handsome to not be found.
Yes, but he also kind of looks in some shots like Scott Farkas from A Christmas Story.
They both got too many teeth. The man got too many teeth.
Too many teeth and a similar brow shape. They both have very angular jaws. I mean, ultimately, they're versions of each other, as it were. Let's just, before we get deeper into this, right? Let's talk about our general feelings here. This is available to watch and everything. And if you read the book or saw the original movie, this obviously follows the book a lot more closely. But like nothing that happens in this movie is going to come out as a grand surprise. But I suppose, just as an exercise, how did you feel about this movie? And I'll set it up this way. I ended up watching this in 2 parts because we had to start a little late, because Ollie wanted to see it, but he had to finish a report he was working on. So we started it at around 9:30 at night, which meant we turned it off after about the first hour and a half, 40 minutes. And at that point, we all said, what the fuck is anyone complaining about? This movie rules. It is fun. It is just a good old-fashioned action movie. I feel like this is coming off with a plum. I don't, what are people complaining about? And then we finish it up this afternoon and we're like, oh, I know what they're complaining about now. Gina, how about you?
I mean, it's fine. It's about a half hour longer than it needs to be.
Yeah,
I was genuinely shocked to see that it clocks in at over 2 hours. And for a movie called The Running Man, he doesn't start running until almost 40 minutes into the movie.
I don't believe the beginning is the issue. It is the end. The end of this movie is the albatross that it's wearing across its neck. I think everyone committed to the bit of just kind of serving up as much of the Bachman book as you possibly could put into it. And then at the end of the day, that's also the least workable component of the Bachman book. And as a result, it works better as an action movie than it does belaboring a point that it had worked better at briefly touching along the majority of its runtime.
Yeah, I had said that this is not a subtle satire,
No.
but also at the same time, we don't live in subtle times. So
perfect point. And it's not to say that its source material or the first version of it are subtle at all. The Bachman book is 1000% going for the most in the far, far future of 2025. Fascism will rule America as some dipshit president has sunk our economy into a grand depression that creates a giant chasm between the haves and the have-nots. So again, that works great when you're writing it in 1973 and you publish it in 1982. And now it seems a little, okay, but what else do you have?
right.
And as a result, like, I think the first hour and a half plus before he gets on the plane, they all work better. It all just kind of has an engine to it. And then right around the point one character you just met dies, it just goes off the rail and becomes a diatribe machine, which isn't fun and it isn't particularly clever or new. And I find it odd that they really stuck to their guns on keeping this for, like, I just feel like at some point someone should have said, listen, I love that you want to keep the plane flying into the building thing, but it's not helping. It's not making it a better story.
Like it's so on the nose that it actually ends up negatively impacting it in the end.
Yes, I would agree with you. You know, it's not to say that I'm not behind some of these ideas or exploring them in art, but
right. But also, you know, it's I don't want to use the phrase preaching to the choir, but yeah, you were right. You're right that the first part is, you know, the setup of how the rules of the game work, which are a little, you know, humorously complicated.
Yeah.
You know, that part I got a kick out of. You know, I did appreciate Coleman Domingo's very smarmy game show host.
Yeah.
You know, I like the idea of, you know, how, as we've long known about reality programming, they employ a lot of clever editing, if not just outright lying to misrepresent a situation. You know, did we need a parody of the Kardashians?
And a toothless one at that.
Yeah.
I just feel if that's fine. They're not above reproach or anything. Like, have at them, everybody, but come with something. Like, you can barely hear what they're talking about. Whatever they're saying they're not saying very much. They're just kind of talking like they're angry at one another. And that may be the parody they're after, but it just doesn't help. It doesn't make me laugh. I don't really find it interesting. It's just weirdly toothless from a filmmaker that, even at his most popcorn, I feel has the ability to bite the hand it feeds, that feeds it in a pretty satisfactory way.
Right. And you know, it's sort of, you know, and you could see that certainly in Shaun of the Dead and The World's End,
yeah,
where to a certain extent he's turning the camera on his own audience, particularly in the World's End, where you have these men getting on middle age who are still obsessed with, you know, this one moment where they peaked in their teenage years, and it's all been downhill ever since. And you know, you're supposed to kind of initially root for him to get what he wants, but then later it turns out, well, actually, this is kind of pathetic. And
they are forced to realize that. They're forced to change. They change over the course of that movie in multiple ways, but like, they really do change as individuals. And that's important. And that's kind of what I'm missing a little bit here. Now, granted, it's The Running Man.
I mean,
that That is the patchwork we're dealing with, the pattern. But Ben has two modes. I don't want to be doing this, and I'm so angry I'm liable to do anything. And that's it. That's all he's got.
Right. And you know, I feel like that, you know, there's a certain element that the audience needs to be convinced to be on his side. And I'm like, no. Like, you know, I'm kind of with him from the beginning. You know, I mean, I guess the whole thing, I mean, yeah, it's bad that he appears to have a violent temper, that he somehow manages to control the presence of his wife and child. But, you know, I mean, I guess that could be considered an asset. Sure.
I mean, it's just one of the many superpowers he gained simply by his existence. Like, he can turn the rage dial, he's allowed to control. He does explode, but only at inanimate objects.
He's like the Hulk, basically.
Yes. And then the other thing is that this is the element I do like, that all of the training that allows him to do what he does over the course of the movie is stuff that he was forced to do on various jobs he was then fired from.
Right.
He understands explosives because of his jobs. He knows how to climb things. He can take a certain amount of electrical shock because he worked on electrical grids. Like, there's all these little superpowers he's gained over the years that would fell any other contestant of the show, but the same network that put him in this situation actually trained him to survive it. Cool. All for it. Wish that had a better resolution.
Right.
Like, it seems like they found that nugget in the storytelling, but could not find a way to tie up that bow at the end, which is a bummer because I feel like they did a lot of the lace work.
Right.
I'm going to warn the audience. There's a mosquito in my office. And if I seem distracted at any point, it's because I'm trying to kill it. I am now the running man. And the running man is, I do not want to have an allergic reaction to a mosquito bite.
If you start hearing me yell, "Die, motherfucker!"
If you hear electrical shocks in the background, it's because I have this little tennis racket with a grid on it that I zap mosquitoes with. My apologies, everyone. So yeah, I also think this might be a slight miscalculation of Glen Powell's star power.
I sort of feel like Glen Powell is somebody Hollywood is desperately trying to make happen, and it's just not really connecting. And I honestly think it's because he's too good looking.
Yes. That is a part of it. And here he's like a fucking Adonis. Like, he's put on like 20 noticeable pounds of muscle here from like him being in a bathing suit in Anything But You or whatever the hell that was called.
Yeah. Like he is so good looking that I can't imagine why the network did not pick him up to basically be the face of the network.
Right.
You know, blonde, blue-eyed, extremely all-American, a jaw you could cut you cut a block of cheese with. Like, it's just I don't get everyman from him.
Right. And he has to really deliver a level of everyman here.
Right. He needs to be able to blend into a crowd simply by putting on a hoodie.
Yes. He needs to look anonymous. And I think because of the sort of prep they did for this and the misfortune of him being so handsome, he's never going to do that. I do feel he's going to end up one of those guys. And the hell this will be for him is that he's a better character actor.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the only person that watched Hitman, and he's a fine actor, but I just did not buy him as a nerdy, lonely philosophy professor.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought him much more as disguising himself as like a suave hitman. And it's like, and I get the point is, oh, well, that's, when he's confident, then his sexy, charismatic side. He's already sexy. You could put him in serial killer glasses and he's still going to be sexy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that, while he does a serviceable job, I do think he's miscast.
Yes, I would agree with you. He comes off as a little too intimidating here. And they try to explain it away as this is part of a network formula. He just happens to fit the, character archetype that they're looking for the Running Man. And that's part of why he's in this situation that he might not be in otherwise. Okay. I don't know that I want to learn as much as I do about the world of the Running Man through YouTube videos, which, while I enjoy YouTube as a medium, I feel is uncinematic as an art form.
Yeah. As much as people try to say that it is, the wave of the future in film, I'm not really seeing it.
No, and certainly not this methodology of storytelling. It's one thing to have make a short film that can work on YouTube, and you can throw YouTube on your TV and it would be in the same aspect ratio and clarity as anything you'd find on Prime, which is where I watch The Running Man. But when it comes to explainer videos, that's not cinema. And I find it weird that a filmmaker who has a pretty interesting ability to convey a lot of plot and story through unconventional visuals. It felt a little rote to me, that component.
Yeah. It felt sort of like, well, this is the way things are now, so I guess I better give into it.
Yes. It would be a minor gripe if things had continued on the way they were going at a certain point, but then when you just extend the plot of it and in an attempt to sort of, fake out people who have read the book, it seemed to be, we're going to swerve book readers, which is like how many people who have read that King Bachman version of this are like, oh, finally an adaptation of the actual book. Now I'll go see The Running Man. I don't know that that's what I'm looking for.
No.
Not to say that it doesn't work for 2/3 of this movie. It is just that third act that I'm kind of like, we ran out of steam. It just doesn't have the juice in this component, for whatever reason. Now that's out of the way. Let's talk about the book, because this would be our first Bachman out of all the Stephen King that we've covered over this season. When have you ever read this?
I have. It's actually out of the Bachman books, though, it is the one that I have read the least.
Mm-hmm. I would say out of the Bachman books, Long Walk is the one I went back to more often. I read Rage when it was available, did not find it to be my cup of tea. So the fact that is gone doesn't irk me in the least.
It is actually available on the Internet Archive.
Sure.
I reread it a couple years ago, and obviously it has not aged well, but there's a certain discomfort level that comes in adulthood when you see these characters just sort of casually siding with a school shooter. It's like, even though, and it's just sort of like, it might actually be his most nihilistic story, because like it's these other teenagers are so easily drawn over to his, everything sucks and life's a joke, and let's violently attack this other classmate because he just kind of a jerk. It's like he hasn't really done anything bad. He's just kind of a weenie. But let's traumatize him to the point of catatonia. And it's like I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this Lord of the Flies type ending here.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 15, I was like, oh, this is some edgy fucking shit, man.
Yeah.
But like, in middle age, I'm like, no, this does not sit right with
and
me.
He later admitted like he's writing that as a teenager himself. Like that is
right.
One of the earliest completed works he ever did. And obviously he massaged it a little bit after the fact, but it is indicative of someone who at that moment in time has that burn it all down. Life's a funny joke. I'm laughing all the way to the grave. Fuck this. Because you're staring down the gun a bit, getting drafted to Vietnam.
Right.
And, that'll do things to a person. So let's do a little backstory and I'll weave in my POV as we go here. King, post Carrie's publication, looks back on his catalog. Obviously, he has a lot of short story work and he has some things in his back pocket because he's never really stopped writing that work in something that feels like the same vein. But he also has these completed things that are too long to be sold as short stories, not long enough to really work as the kind of novelist he wants to be, and they don't fit the vibe. So he comes up with a sort of solution that works for him. If he can actually convince somebody that this second literary life that he's created for himself, Richard Bachman, wrote these books and just like to be published, but he doesn't want to do the publicity thing. He just wants to sell it based on the works itself and just see how they do. And if he ends up having a book down the road that he writes out and goes, ooh, this doesn't fit the King lane, maybe I port this over to Bachman and I work it from that angle. And it's also like a valve check. If you come up with too much stuff and you're like, I don't know if this, I still want to put out a book, but I can't mess with my publication schedule as Stephen King. I put out a Bachman. So that's the sort of cover story. And I think Bachman enables him to write from the gutter, the sort of emotional gutter that he doesn't often allow himself to do in his own movies, or not in his movies, his own books. And as a result, that fare is meaner than the writer he ends up becoming. And you kind of get glimpses of it along the way. And I would say certainly the ending of Cujo is in that vein. And you can, at one point, he dabbled with putting out Pet Sematary as a Bachman.
Because it was so dark.
But I think by that moment he was considering it, that's when Thinner gets unveiled as a secret Stephen King novel, because it does read like just an overlong Stephen King short story.
Right.
Sorry to all the Thinner stands out there.
Are there? Show yourselves.
Truly. I'm not going to say that your emotional reaction to art is wrong. I am desperate to hear why. Your explanations are true and valid, regardless of my opinions, but I am desperate to hear what they are. It's not a challenge. It's simply, I'm hard pressed to come up with that reason. Maybe it's just been a while since I read Thinner or suffered through that fucking movie. That being said,
we shan't be covering that.
Yeah. Or we will challenge ourselves to do the worst thing possible. So up until Thinner, you kind of have this theme going within the Bachman books. And that is, angry white guy is going to fix this rotten world, which makes sense. Like, this is the most self-insert sort of thing that King does for a while. I mean, eventually he gets to a place where he can do it without being a dick. But at this moment of his writing career, he's doing it to be the dick he doesn't want to be in real life. And it obviously starts with Rage, which he writes as a teen. It's published in 1977. It's disowned after an early school shooting incident, and he took it out of circulation. You can still find it if you want to. I think it's a shitty book.
Yeah, it's a hard read for a variety of reasons.
And honestly, he ends up doing this kind of thing better. Again, we've talked about how King rolls over an idea that he has and and tries to think, well, all right, I'm not really satisfied with that way they came out. How can I use these elements in a slightly different way? So akin to how he feels about the government in The Stand, if you take Captain Trips out of it and the world just kind of develops with that sort of governmental ideology intact, you kind of come to the end point of his next Bachman book, The Long Walk. It shares a lot of story elements with the other books. You got a dystopian political landscape. You have overreach of federalized police, a form of sort of gladiatorial entertainment. Not so much in this point, it's more like the sort of Waco feel of siege entertainment. Because in this sense, you have young men who volunteer to walk a certain speed over so many hours of the day. And if you your pace falls below that, you receive a warning. You get 3 warnings, you get shot. 100 boys start until 1 walker remains. It's the Hunger Games before Hunger Games. Maybe we catch up to the movie at some point. When it came out, both of us were like, emotionally, I can't handle this right now.
Right.
Heard nothing but good things from people I trust.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, I don't. That's a personal. I'm not sure my soul can take it right now. But again, everything I've heard is like awesome. And the book, I think, does one of those things that King does so well, which puts you inside of the headspace of people whose life stories and opinions you disagree with, who admit things that are terrible, admit things that make you feel icky, but but it allows you to just hear them and take them in, not without judgment entirely, but just allowing people to be people in extreme circumstances. And as such, like, I can see if you take that tone and some of those characters, you could really make a decent movie out of it.
Right.
That being said, it's probably not going to be for everyone. But that sort of theme of it's all the police overreach and you're in a world that's out of our control. You've got Roadwork, which is a little Rage on steroids, a little Falling Down, a little Dog Day Afternoon. And
yeah, it's a lot of angry white man pastiche.
Yes. It's a guy who's lost his wife and kids, and then he discovers that this demolition crew is coming through and they're going to destroy his home and his workplace to make way for an interstate highway. I remember thinking this was mid. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, again, the one I come back to the most often is the Long Walk. So I don't remember much about Roadwork.
Yeah, and then the Running Man was like the thing that made me pick up the Bachman books collection in the first place, because obviously I think at that point I had seen the '87 movie, and this movie plays out weirdly enough a lot more like that book than you might originally think. The main character is a blacklisted worker who signs up to be a contestant at, in the book, the Games Network, to earn money for a sick child. And he ends up destroying a YMCA. He ends up, getting to Derry, Maine. He takes a woman hostage on the road, and then a plane flies into a building. So it's hitting all the touchstones in a much more action movie way for most of it. But if the goal here was to adhere more to the book, congrats, you did do that. I'm not sure that makes it it is a better movie than the 87 film.
Oh, sure. I mean, the 87 is so stripped down.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's a guy in a game show where you have to fight for your life.
Yes. And we have covered that movie on Patreon.
I mean, it's fun, but it's not like, it's no masterpiece or anything. It's just it's silly entertainment.
It's a rainy Sunday afternoon movie that comes on TNT, and you're like, well, I have a frozen pizza it's that kind of movie.
I can't wait for that electric guy.
Yeah. It's not this. It's the 87 version is not nearly as good of an action movie, weirdly enough, even though you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just, it has some better satire to it, especially considering the time in which it's made. The very idea that this is made at the same time as RoboCop, and they come out the same year. So they're playing in the same sandbox, weirdly enough. Now, RoboCop does it better. But Running Man isn't terrible. And in fact, it has one great thing going for it, which is casting Richard Dawson.
Yeah, I was going to say it was an ingenious move to cast a real life smarmy game show host as a fictitious smarmy game show host,
who you can tell while that Family Feud is kind of a form of golden handcuffs for him. Like, here's the schedule. It pays him a lot of money. He's always working. He can do it as long as he wants to, but part of him is so mad. It's so pissed off. This is what he has to do. And I don't begrudge him for that. And Running Man is a great outlet for that. And it comes across. And I also would say that Richard Dawson is one of those this only works in this movie kind of castings.
Oh yeah, because you have to have that contrast, and you have that here too, where this is a game show, but also people are dying.
Yeah,
and I think one thing that is impossible not to view the new one from in a contemporary lens is. And obviously that's one of the points of the movie is that, in real life, that sort of line has become blurred in, we don't always know if what we're watching is real or not.
Right. Yeah.
And it's, it's a very sobering and frightening thought, and it makes you, and it kind of, poses a question of, this is a very popular show, with a very excited audience. And it's like, does the audience understand that these are real people they're seeing horrifically killed, or do they think it's all a big show?
Or if you show people enough of this kind of mayhem and death, will they begin to just view it as entertainment? Is it the worst forecast of what is often pointed at us as horror fans of how can you watch these horrible things happen and enjoy it? Well, because it's fiction.
Right. And I think it also has to do a lot with, just social media in general and people passing around like, awful things happening to people's entertainment. And I mean, and I know better. I've done it. I've watched it. I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm just saying that, this movie does, pose some uncomfortable questions. And it's a shame that it gets a little too obvious with the message it's trying to send by the end of the movie.
Yes. I think you can go two ways about it. You actually make a movie that addresses those legitimate concerns, or you have it as an element, but that element is something that is threaded along the plot rather than, all right, we've reached the end and now you're really going to learn your lesson, everybody. And it's kind of like, I don't know that this is a lesson I need to learn. I think it was quite obvious with how you were threading it throughout. So I would rather be entertained to a degree because these points are not new to the movie at that point. And I don't know that they're resolved in such a emotionally or convincing manner that it's going to break through to someone who needs to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know that the audience for this movie needs to be convinced of the point it's trying to make.
Whereas at the very least, the 87 movie, from its vantage point, is kind of looking at its own version of this to a degree. And it's coming up, the violence in popular entertainment is more akin to the WWE and American Gladiators. It's dressed up violence. And as such, it kind of has a similar juice, but obviously so many of the concepts in it are much more sci-fi at that moment in history. I don't think it's helped by the fact that Schwarzenegger is coasting off of fumes of star power. He just goes take after take with zero effort made. Yeah, and also this is, they don't really go too much into the wealth inequity. It's more a kind of a parody of, the stranglehold that television had on people at the time. Right. It just, and it's not helped. I just think Schwarzenegger is kind of a, oh yeah, he's sleepwalking through it. Like you get the feeling he's just waiting for someone to call cut so he can smoke a cigar. At one point, he's out committed in a scene by Mick fucking Fleetwood. Yeah, like I said, I mean, as far as whatever problems I may have, I don't have a problem with Glen Powell's performance. I just don't accept him as an everyday, working class schmo who's hanging on by a thread. Yes. And I also, there is a bit of, I'm going to put this at the feet of action choreography. He feels a little over muscled. It feels like he's too big to move in certain points. It makes him appear like a tougher opponent. But I don't need him to be a ninja, but right. Like, I don't know why he hasn't been recruited to be like a bodyguard or again, just the face of the network. Yes. Or have his backstory be a little more. It does feel like maybe if they'd not been so tied to what the book is and just tried to use the skeleton elements of the story with a more, he doesn't have to be the helicopter pilot who says, "No, I won't fire on the crowd. They just want food," which is ludicrous in that film. But maybe something closer to it would have been more compelling. I don't know. It's again, if this works when it's just sprinting along as an action movie, I buy it. Right, and the increasing paranoia that he has, and I think that's there's a lot of suspense over who's going to turn on him, who's a safe person for him to deal with, and and that's an interesting element. And then at some point people behind the camera thought, I'm not sure people are understanding what we're trying to say here. Yeah, and as such, just to get back to the Bachman books, but we can see, like, just as in other veins and works that he's created, King is trying to work through something that's in his head, and he's trying to find the perfect vessel for encapsulating that idea. And Rage, Long Walk, Roadwork, Running Man all kind of have a similar story mechanics, but with different characters and circumstances, all revolving around anti-government rot and anger at a growing military-industrial complex that's funded, federal forces beyond our control by kleptocrats who make money out of continued governmental ineptitude. It's not science fiction anymore. No. And I do have to wonder if some of my reticence here is that it's hard to satire and parody something that's actively happening to you. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not sure. There were certain points where I was cringing a little too much to have fun with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wait, this is really happening. They are really manipulating, footage of people to suit their narrative. This is actually happening. So, like, when does this become where does this cross the line from a satire to a thinly disguised documentary? Right. And then part of me wonders if you shuffled this around a little bit in terms of where you put people, does this work better? If in the Ben Richards role, you had Michael Cera, and Michael Cera, a person who did train into a believable fighter within Scott Pilgrim. If you put him in that role, maybe this works a little bit better. Maybe you give Glen Powell a crazy wig and let him be the dairy resident with the crazy mom. If you put Katie O'Brien as the lead Hunter McCone, maybe I buy that a little bit better than Lee Pace.
They've got to stop covering Lee Pace's face in movies. Like, why?
I know, but he is that guy who's like, I'm too good looking. I'm going to be a character actor. And he just keeps earning money.
All right. Well, I mean, I could just Google him, but still, yeah. I mean, this is at least the third big budget movie I've seen him in where his face has been completely covered. There's a lot of handsome faces in this. Again, you've got handsomely weathered Josh Brolin. Mm-hmm. You've got handsomely handsome Coleman Domingo.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of and the ladies too. You've got Katie O'Brien. I did not recognize Jamie Lawson from Sinners until I looked up the cast.
Oh yeah, of course,
as Ben's wife.
Mm-hmm.
This does not suffer from a lack of eye candy, but that's the problem. There's too much eye candy in this dystopian future.
Yes, I'm not going to be the first one who said this. This is going to start to bubble up all over the place, but there's been this thing that's starting to work its way through TikTok and social media, and it's not I'm not going to blow anyone's mind, but there was a moment in time in which a movie was packaged thusly: get me the hottest guy, great, get me the hottest girl. Now there's like 7 or 8 more roles in this movie. I don't fucking care who you cast. Just give me the right person.
Right. I'm just thinking about like a movie with a similar kind of dystopian future, competitive games. I think Rollerball.
Right.
With James fucking Caan.
With James Caan.
That's your leading man.
And it's James Caan. And then, but also a movie which a lot of those roles are filled up with dudes. And they're not, but it's not Lee Pace, Coleman Domingo, Josh Brolin,
right? Sean
Hayes parachuting in for a cameo.
And one of the reasons why, like, the remake didn't work, other than that was plug stupid, is that you replaced James Caan with, who was it? Not Chris Pratt. It was another Chris.
It's another Chris.
Yeah, it was one of the '90s Chris's. I don't think he's doing much anymore. But yeah, you've got like a teen idol, replacing 47-year-old craggy ass James Caan.
Yes, Chris Klein is
Chris Klein. Thank you.
And Klein, just one of those guys who seemed to have a mode, which is semi-guileless high schooler, and anything beyond that, he could not quite carry off. And my favorite sort of evaluation of Klein's oeuvre would come from a reviewer of the Chun-Li movie. Have you ever forced yourself to watch Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li?
I have not.
They like to evoke it on Blank Check all the time because the review is basically that Chris Klein is the only person who lacks the credibility for you to buy them just walking through a door.
I like that.
It's just, there's something about him doing anything that makes you go, I don't buy this. And,
no.
And that's unfortunate. It seems bad for his career. But that Rollerball movie is a pure example of whatever he had. He's been stretched too far past this. I don't think Glen Powell is on that level. No one in this movie is on that level.
His acting is fine.
Yeah.
But, cast him as like, the glib, smarmy, secretly evil network owner.
Yes, I agree with you. I think you have all the elements you need to make this a slightly more interesting and successful film, minus its back third. If you just pick up the pieces of this and move it around in a more interesting manner. I hate the fact that Katie O'Brien seems to constantly be miscast every third movie she's in. I think she gets it right. And then some big franchise goes, get me Katie O'Brien. Why wouldn't you? Look at her. And I get it. Look at her. But she's fucking wasted here. Like, she's got nothing to do. I'm glad that she got paid.
Yeah, and you have Martin Herlihy of Please Don't Destroy, the Saturday Night Live short film group. Like, I'm not sure how he managed to make it to the finals of this. When his first day out, he basically says, I'm one of the running men.
But that does seem to be the type. And in that YouTube video that we're shown of who it is they cast in the Running Man, Herlihy is the guy who is completely guileless, who literally thinks no one's going to turn me in, and how can I use the fact that I'm on the Running Man to maybe get a girl interested in me. And then Katie O'Brien is the braggart who is simply laying low with the amount of money that they're given to basically party until they're dead.
Right.
And then Powell is playing the last man standing type who has enough skill and brain power to know he's going to last longer if he stays undercover as long as possible. It's just that he has more wherewithal than most to actually survive the entirety of the show.
And he has integrity,
right? Which
is unknown if the other two do or not, because Hurley's character dies almost immediately.
Yes,
and as you say, Katie O'Brien's character, she takes off running, and then we really don't see much of her after that.
I will also say, this entire thing is parody and satire, and I get it. But when parody and satire hews a little too close to reality, I just start to get bummed out.
Exactly.
When two hicks burn a lesbian alive for existing, it bums me out.
Yeah, there's a certain point where it's like, oh, this actually isn't. And it ends like, yay, the little people won. But at the same time, the little people aren't winning right now.
Yeah.
And it's nice. Well, it's hopeful, eventually decency will prevail. And that's probably true. I hope so. I hope it happens in my lifetime. But right now, things are looking pretty bleak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I didn't come away, feeling, inspired. I was like, well, that was okay.
Yes. I think some of that comes from the fact that all the energy it has dissipates in that sort of lowest moment that happens when Michael Cera is taken out of the movie. And I get that as a story beat. That's not my complaint. But everything that kind of happens after that never regains the emotional momentum, the storytelling momentum. It's a lot of sitting and talking.
Right. And I think that people who have read the story are going into it thinking, well, there's no fucking way they're going to end it the way it does in the book. And they don't. And it's understandable why they don't, for obvious reasons. But also, it's like, no, after all that, the audiences are going to want to see him sacrifice himself. They're going to want to see him be on top at the end.
Yeah.
It is frankly a more powerful story when he does sacrifice himself.
Right. And I think if that's what you're going to do, I don't think you need the 40 minutes of warm up to do it. And then I also don't need a second YouTube video telling me how the story ends. I just think that deflates.
It's like I can read.
Right. I also can put fucking shit together. It feels like story notes. And as a result, like, yeah, it's a fine movie. Like, I didn't pay anything for it because it was already on Prime. And we happen to have that at the moment. So that worked. But I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend this. I also don't think it's as bad as some people say. But
no.
I think all of that really does come from the fact that you have a level you hold Edgar Wright up to. And the one thing I don't think he's ever really delivered is middling Edgar Wright.
You think that's what this is here?
I think it's the most mid Edgar Wright's been.
Do you think it has to do with adapting someone else's material? Although Scott Pilgrim wasn't his, and I'm a number one Scott Pilgrim defender.
Yes, I think it is part of some sort of muzzling to a certain degree, or an adaptation of style to try to get Paramount to say yes to it. I think it just doesn't. It does not have. I don't need it to be funny the way Edgar Wright movies can be funny. But it doesn't have a swing for the fence the way that I can at least, I'm maybe in the minority of genuinely liking A Last Night in Soho, but I don't think people can say that wasn't a swing. He's going for it.
Yeah.
And this movie feels like I'm in the direction of going for it without fully for it. Because I can't, they won't let me. That wasn't what I sold them. I'm not sure what it is, but I do get the vibe that this is something that he sells that he gets people on board when it is still a $1 billion, money-making machine. And the name Stephen King is all of a sudden something people can rely on, a Colleen Hoover right now sort of entity. And so, yeah, it doesn't reach. But I think that's unfair to the movie that's there, because I don't know that he's trying to make that for the first 2/3.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, it's 2/3 of an entertaining movie. There's a lot of interesting world building that I appreciate. One thing that I also appreciate is he didn't go with what to me would have been a very obvious choice, but I feel like a lot of other filmmakers would have gone this route of making Killian basically a Trump stand-in.
Right.
Did you see Mickey 17? I
have not finished Mickey 17. I started watching it a few months ago, and I was like, I'm not in the right headspace for this at the moment in time, and I just never picked it back up. That's a complete on me.
Again, it's fine, but and God knows I love him and everything else, but Mark Ruffalo is basically doing a Trump impersonation in this, and it is insufferable.
I can believe that.
And I'll be like, I go out of my way to not hear the voice of the man himself in my everyday life, because it's beyond nails on the chalkboard for me at this point. But like to hear, someone going on for 45 minutes just doing, a passable at best, like, who he's supposed to be. But it's just like, you don't need to do this. We know who he's supposed to be.
Right.
Like, and again, that's the problem, is we've been dealing with this shit for 10 years now. Yeah. You don't need to point and say, what this is supposed to be like, right? And that's why I was like, do we need the Kardashian gag? Because I mean, we know that's a sign of the moral decay of society, of modern society, that these vapid rich people have become like among the world's biggest celebrities, and the little people insist on tuning in every week to see their latest foibles. It's like, yeah, I know they've been around for a while. They were a gag 15 years ago. And it just felt shockingly stale to me.
Yes. And I'm glad that they don't go in that direction, because as you said, it just doesn't feel like there's juice for this.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
Yeah. Anymore. I do wish Brolin had a take. And I think,
he's basically just being like, Josh Brolin bad guy. Yeah. It's he's fine, but it is a role he could play in his sleep at this point.
Right. He's got a certain amount of gravitas and everything, but I do feel he should have it should have been something rather than just anything. And Coleman Domingo just has so much presence that you get it, but it's also just Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, I mean, this is a job that he's doing. You know, he's a game show host, right. And when things start getting heated up, he's like, as you would say, my name's Paul. This is between y'all. And just, lights out. I mean,
yes, he does get a out that no one else in the movie seems to get. It's interesting. The whole thing's kind of interesting in that manner. I wanted to like it, and for most of it I did, and then it just really levels off.
Yeah, it's a solid find, but it's not one that I expect I'll want to revisit again.
Right. Because
again, I am picking up what he's putting down, and the problem is he keeps handing it to me over and over and over again.
I agree. And at a certain point, seeing one guy be the focal point where it's his violence that causes revolution sort of energy, that it comes off at a certain point as spleen venting when it's not super inventive about it. So at a certain point, I like a lot of ideals here. I second the emotion, but sometimes those unchecked emotions cause an individual to, rush the perimeter of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I'm not saying we got to be careful. All I'm saying is you got to approach it a little smarter than this. And my guess is that Long Walk does, based on everything that people have said. I just, again, not emotionally prepared when it came out to confront it.
Yeah, maybe 10 years from now I might be.
Yeah. I also think releasing this in December was fucking insane.
Yeah, that was weird. This is not a holiday movie. This is a big summer movie.
It just is not a holiday movie. And as a result, you've got a movie that is what now would be considered modestly budgeted for a 2-hour plus action film at $100 million, and it only pulls 70. That's rough.
Yeah.
One more nitpick. Once upon a time, right? The director here, Edgar Wright, was supposed to do Ant-Man. This was at the very beginning of the MCU when they didn't really have a full grasp on it. They just signed people to kind of develop properties that they had available to them, which were outside Spider-Man, outside the X-Men, outside the Fantastic Four, anything that they could actually make into a movie, see what you can do with it. And Wright's like, I have all these ideas for an Ant-Man movie. And they're like, we don't really want to make an Ant-Man movie, but we would like to make an Edgar Wright movie. So at least write it. And what he ends up writing ends up a lot of it in that movie, in the finished product of it, including a scene in which Ant-Man and the villain, who also has shrinking technology, do battle inside of a briefcase that's inside of a falling helicopter.
Right. That's a scene with the iPod clicks on.
Yes.
And it's playing something from The Cure's Disintegration.
Yes. Maybe something akin to what an Edgar Wright action scene might be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I pegged that for one of the bits that he wrote. Yes. left over.
And so here you get a little mini version of it inside the cockpit of this plane, where you have a tightly closed fight between a guy who has no weapons and people with guns. And the gravity keeps shifting because the automatic pilot keeps turning on and off. And you're like, oh, this is his version of the Ant-Man fight. And he's kind of like giving you this is how I would have done it to a degree, but I don't believe that. I don't think it would have been this so contained as this. It comes off a little like he's grinding his own axe. I don't think he wears it well. And it was like, oh, I don't need Edgar Wright should be doing Edgar Wright movies. And I think it's hard for me to believe that this is a entirely Edgar Wright led endeavor.
Yeah, no, it does feel like, somebody, bent his ear and said, you have to give this a happy ending.
Yes.
You have to give this an ending where the audience will cheer.
But I also don't think the bad ending would have made the movie better.
Well, no, again, you can't really do, beyond the obvious, imagery, it's an impossible choice to make.
Yeah. So, choosing your own death venture here is getting shot or blown up.
Yeah, there's a lot, but the most variety is sometimes you get shot with a gun, sometimes you get shot with a crossbow.
Yeah, occasionally you're stabbed, but that's about the sum total of things. You get blown up real good. I don't want to be set on. I don't want to be set on fire. Yeah. I know that much. I can certainly see myself getting shot in the head for saying something stupid. Like, I'm a running man. Whack. Well, I have a terrible reveal, Gina. Do not look behind you. Because I have an important question to ask you. Gina, where can people find you on these here internet?
I write about television and movies and pop culture on my newsletter, GinaWatchesThings.ghost.io. And I am pretty much just on Instagram these days under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. You can find me on Screamshare at screamshare.beehive.com. And you get 3 piping good horror streaming picks into your inbox every single week, so I can take that decision paralysis demon out of your life and get you to watch some good horror movies. Of course, you can find the show on Patreon, where you can help support us fiscally, keep this show free for all. You can buy a t-shirt on Dashery. There's a link in the show notes. You can join us on Discord. The link is in the notes as well to join there. Follow us on YouTube. You can talk back to us there, or Spotify is another good place where we can get back to you. Email us at killbykillpod@gmail.com. We love y'all. We're nearing our 10-year mark here. So
insanity,
true insanity. But I will rhapsodic about that when the time comes. But I'm flushed with humble in the 10 years here that people have been on this journey with us, or if you just started listening, I'm so happy you could all join us for this very silly affair. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue. For myself and for Gina, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.